This morning I'm going to be talking about psychic attacks and the spiritual path. Before I do, there's a couple of things I'd like to say. First of all, I want to tell you how much I appreciate the support of those who are subscribing to our Sunday programs on a weekly basis and are supporting us. Our support team is really growing. Can I call you a team? You're really growing. And I just want you to know how much it means to us to see that you are joining in, because we know that your heart is with our heart and our hearts are all with the teachings. So I thank you very much for joining us. If you're on YouTube watching this talk this morning, remember that you can go to the White Mountain website and register. Just go to the menu and you'll see subscriptions. Go to subscriptions and you can very easily sign up for our Sunday webinars. Only one time, and then you'll receive notifications every week, and if the title of the talk sounds interesting to you, then you can tune in and listen or not if it's not interesting to you. The other point I wanted to bring up is the title of this morning's talk. It's called Psychic Attacks and the Spiritual Path, but I think I'd like to rename it to Esoteric Psychology, the Path and Psychic Attacks. So you'll understand this as I go through the talk and share some ideas, how it really, excuse me, we're all clearing our throats here. I think you'll agree with me. We really are talking about esoteric psychology. And through that venue of psychology, to see psychic attacks and how psychic attacks affect us. So this morning is part one, and then next Sunday will be part two. The spiritual path that I'm talking about in the talk today is about just one of the many paths that lead to the Father's home. But this is the particular path that we are traveling with this group. This is a path which is traditionally called the path to Shambhala. It is also known as the path of the heart and the path of living ethics. It is a path that strongly adheres to the principles of beauty and goodness and righteousness and joy and freedom. And it is a path that leads us to the supermundane worlds. So this is the path and the study that I will be sharing this morning. As you listen to this morning's talk, keep your ears open to new ideas, especially if you are on this path. Most esoteric students fall too easily into thinking they are under some kind of psychic attack, or that the forces of darkness or its agents are at some kind of war with them or with you. But we are assured that this is not necessarily so. And then there is a listing in the teachings about what it means to be under psychic attack on this path. And there's 9 points to be under psychic attack. First of all, most of us, this is number one, most of us are not advanced enough on the path to be under attack by the dark forces. And I guess of all 9 points, this is the one that I would like to emphasize the most. Having been on this path for the majority part of my life, I've been exposed to many, many people, many, many groups, and I oftentimes see how individuals will use this phrase of being attacked, of being under the control of the forces of darkness. Or even worse, they will single out an individual, or they will single out a group and say, They're under the influence of the dark forces. Stay away from them. Or they're darkened souls. Things, phrases like that. So be really conscious of what it is you are saying through the teaching, because the teaching is really describing, at this point, most of us are not advanced enough on the path to be under attack by dark forces. Number two, and the rest of it's very beautiful. The other 8 points are very beautiful. Most of us are protected because of our purity, because of our beauty and dedication, and because of our sacrificial life. So if you feel like you fall in this category, then you can take a nice big breath of relief and know that you're protected. Number three, most of us are protected by our solar angel, by our teacher, by our master, by the ashram, by the hierarchy, or even by the benevolent forces of the universe. Number four, most of us are protected because of our loving heart. Number five, most of us are protected because of the psychic energy we have or the group has. Number six, the great invocation protects us and others. Number seven, meditation prepares our bodies in such a way that attacks cannot easily defeat us. And often when we get stronger, we defeat most of the attacks. Number eight, Christ is your protector, is our protector. Christ is continuously at war on behalf of humanity. If we keep contact with him, he will shield us by his almighty power. And number nine, our good deeds in the past protect us. What we give and what we do to help people in dire conditions reach us and help us. So you see those 9 points? So when we think about psychic attacks, and there is a lot written in the books of the teachings about psychic attack. I think about the book written by Torquem Serdarian called Battling the Forces of Darkness. It's an extremely important book, and we all should know and be familiar with the contents. So at some point in our individual or group life, or even our national life, that we can recognize what it really means to be under the attack of the dark forces. In many of the books of the teachings, we are told about these attacks that come from the outside, but I'm not going to be talking about that today. I'm going to be discussing attacks, the source of which is from within us. These are the kind of psychic attacks that most of us experience, but we're under the misunderstanding. We think these are attacks from outside, influences from outside, when in essence they are coming from within our own nature. So I thought that this would be very interesting to talk about today, and then I'll continue on next Sunday and share a little bit more. A very high percentage of attacks come from our subconscious mind. Most of the subconscious mind is full of our own fabrications. So there's a book titled The Subconscious Mind and the Chalice. Again, this is written by Torquem. If you have not studied that book, I encourage you to do so. The first 3/4 of the book covers what the subconscious mind is. It's significant. There is nothing like it out there, nothing. And then following that book, there are 3 books most recently written or published books on consciousness and what consciousness is. very profound. This is why I'm saying I wanted to rename today's talk about esoteric psychology and psychic attacks in the path. You know, this is the content of these books reflect the ageless wisdom teachings on this path to Shambhala. It's like a beacon of light that shines upon this path and helps us to accelerate our advancement on the path much more rapidly than the norm. So the first thing to realize that most of this, the subconscious mind, our subconscious mind, is full of our own fabrications. Now, how does this work? Whenever we are in a post-hypnotic state of mind, we collect a lot of hypnotic suggestions. And then we add them onto them with our own imagination and our fabrication. See what I'm saying? That our subconscious mind is full of our own fabrications. This then means we must step up to the plate of responsibility and take responsibility for what's happening in our life and not discharge it to outer attacks. Okay? What are some of the emotional and mental elements that trigger hypnotic conditions? Now, this will be not a big surprise to any of us, even if you haven't studied the text of the Ageless Wisdom, but just the practicality of it, that these elements are hatred, anger, fear, jealousy, and greed. These are the triggers for hypnotic conditions, to put us in a hypnotic condition. When we're in a hypnotic condition, we are cut off from our consciousness. It's like we have put under the spell. We have put our own, our own selves under a spell. So the next time you find yourself immersed in hatred or anger or fear especially, jealousy especially, and greed, just realize that you're putting yourself in a very hypnotic state of condition. Whenever we are in these states, everything around us, now listen to this, everything around us forms, colors, sounds, smells, words, motions, and so forth turn into post-hypnotic suggestions. Interesting. Can you think back to a time where you were so angry or so jealous that you can recognize now in hindsight that you were, in fact, in a post-hypnotic state of being, where your eyes may have blurred, you may have been a little blinded, you were so angry that your heart was shut down, your loving heart, your sense of compassion, your understanding, your joy, your recognition of beauty, your gratitude for life, all of those elements that keep us advancing on the path, all those doors were closed. And now we are immersed in darkness. This darkness then feeds our hypnotic or our subconscious mind, and that experience, that situation is collected along with all the other situations and go into the subconscious mind. Now, we also collect other post-hypnotic suggestions from the radio. So be careful what you listen to on the radio, on television, even our internet. our dear internet that we all spend a lot of time on day after day after day. We must be discerning. We must be discriminating. Our electronic devices from which we read email, newspapers, magazines, and so forth. These are suggestions that put us in a post-hypnotic state that go into our subconscious mind. Also, post-hypnotic suggestions from our friends, our enemies, while we are under the emotional feelings of hatred, anger, jealousy, fear, and greed. In these states, the subconscious mind prepares a video recording for you. Think about this. A video recording is part of our subconscious mind. So all of these post-hypnotic suggestions turn on the video recording. Now, let's think of digital. It's easier to think digitally rather than the old, recording where we had film strips and we had to keep buying new cassette tapes, right, to record our videos on. Now we have digital. Infinite space. All of this information is going into the subconscious mind, which is timeless. Just timeless. Our environment and our inner reactions, our imagination and fabrications are all visually recorded on this disc. For example, you are in fear, and the event causing your fear is recorded along with your imagination or fabrications. Then in a day, or even years later, you are sitting somewhere when that recording becomes re-stimulated and the fear returns. Only this time it is bigger, and your thinking makes it grow until it completely controls you. Now, I had an experience, personal experience of this happening. It was quite profound. Maybe having that experience is why it led me to this day to talking about this subject and being able to share personal experience. I had a most beautiful sister-in-law who was married to my brother, who at a young age was diagnosed with breast cancer. So quite a while ago. They had 3 young children, and she passed on. She did not survive the cancer. During that time, of course, the family was extremely upset. We were all worried about the 3 little girls and my brother. And not even realizing it, I was absorbing that experience. It went into the subconscious mind. It wasn't but 2 weeks after she passed that I too was diagnosed. What the heck is this all about? I went to the doctor, very wise doctor, and he said, has anything happened to you recently that may have caused this to happen to you? Now, we're looking like 40 years ago that this took place. And I said, well, my sister-in-law just passed from breast cancer. And he said, okay. He didn't say anything more about it. I went in for tests and tests and tests and tests and tests. And the outcome was I survived. The outcome was they felt like they had misdiagnosed the problem. And just when they were ready to send me over to the hospital to do surgery, I was completely clean. And it seemed like a miracle. But now, through studying the teaching and understanding the subconscious mind, and these video recordings and how an event can trigger that recording. See what happened? I mean, that's an extreme and dramatic example, but it can happen. So when we go back and look at these emotional, mental elements, hatred, anger, fear, jealousy, and greed, let us work really, really hard to eradicate the tails of all of these experiences, purify them so that we can toss them out of the subconscious mind. And from this point forward, let's try to gain control over these elements so that they don't put us in a hypnotic condition and then go into the subconscious mind, which we may incarnations later have to experience the result of. Read the recordings, becomes re-stimulated, the fear returns, but this time it is bigger. So each time that recording is re-stimulated, then the fear becomes bigger, or the jealousy becomes more profound, or the hatred becomes deeper, and so forth. What makes it grow is our thinking until it completely controls us. You wish bad for others, and it turns into a wish for yourself. Now, this is very interesting. It turns into a wish for ourself in our subconscious mind, because the subconscious mind does not discriminate between ourselves and others. But it forces the hypnotic suggestion to actualize itself every single time it is re-stimulated. See how that works? You become the target of your own arrows. In 10 minutes of jealousy and hatred, you build a 100-foot video recording in your subconscious mind. Some sicknesses are built in the same manner. You identify with sick people. You see how I did with my sister-in-law. You identify with sick people, and you imagine you are sick. Now, as most of you know, a couple of years ago, my very, very dear friend died of cancer very, very quickly. Now, when I have the TV set on, and you may be realizing this as well, what is the continual advertising of the Cancer Treatment Center of America, the Cancer Treatment Center of Arizona, the Cancer Treatment Center of I've forgotten, there's another one that's down there in Scottsdale, and over and over and over, and they have this soft, gentle, compassionate music. I went to this center, and then the little signature across the bottom of your screen. This result is not normal. This woman was healed, but don't expect it. But it's in like 8-point type that you can't see when you're old. Okay? And so now what happens if I'm watching a program that I really, really love? I know you should say don't watch TV. Well, you know, that's your life, not mine. Sorry. I put it on mute. I just don't listen to it anymore. You put it on mute, you don't watch it, you don't let those images go into your mind. Because why? It kept taking me back to those 6 very, very difficult weeks. And I don't want to put any more hypnotic suggestions in the subconscious mind of some illness. So be aware. In Asia, we are told it is forbidden to talk in front of children about the sicknesses of other people, or to discuss surgical and hospital experiences. They think that a child may identify himself with what is told. and record it as a post-hypnotic suggestion in his subconscious mind. Years later, the child may fall sick because of the recording. I remember as a youngster, maybe in my teens, early 20s, and I would go out for a meal with mom and dad's friends or relatives, and they'd all be talking about their health. Oh, I feel so bad. Oh, my arm is broken. Oh, my leg is this. Oh, my stomach. Oh, this, oh, that. And I don't want to grow old. Because what does growing old means? It means you sit around the table talking about all of your ills. So let me encourage you just to know when you're talking to me about all of your ills and everything over a meal, I'm not listening. I've just turned it off. I don't want these post-hypnotic suggestions coming into my subconscious mind. There was a case in which a young woman of 21 years developed a serious skin disease in Florida. As the doctor was examining her at home, a little neighborhood girl was present with her parent. At night, the girl told her parent that she felt she had the same disease. Well, of course, the parents said, this is just your imagination, go to sleep, don't worry about it. 25 years later, imagine this, 25 years later, the girl developed the same disease. She said, I do not know why, but I knew I had that disease in my blood since childhood. See, this is very real. This is why I wanted to share, this personal sharing, but which is not comfortable for me to do, but is very real. So this is substantiating what the teaching is telling us, to be careful. The neighbors said, well, that was just an attack from Satan. Well, it is true that our subconscious mind works often as a Satan. Most of what we are is the playback of our subconscious recordings, which can be annihilated by advanced psychological means before they knock us down. Whether we are in fear, in hatred, in anger, or jealousy, or greed, we are 75% in a hypnotic condition. If you understand this, you will be very cautious so as not to ruin your future by recording future troubles for yourselves. It is evident that sages, knowing this, advised us not to fall into such sins. Now, some people think they're immune to these suggestions. Look at, I'm so happy. I'm so happy. This isn't affecting me. Well, it may be true that they are happy now, but the subconscious mind has mysterious laws. A portion of it can sleep for a few incarnations and emerge suddenly when all was in perfect condition and loads the person with additional taxation or karma. This is why we suddenly see great misfortunes come to a person when he or she was in a perfect condition. I think this is where the phrase, the good die young, comes from. And there seems to be no explanation for it. But now we have an explanation. So this is why I'm saying this is esoteric psychology, which is part of the path of the Ageless Wisdom teaching. You see two people happily married, and suddenly they divorce without any apparent reason, or with a reason that is not related directly to them. Many people consider this as a psychic attack of some sort, but it is not. It is an attack by your post-hypnotic recordings and actions. All such playbacks can involve your three bodies, your physical, emotional, and mental bodies, simultaneously because they are built by the chemistry of your thoughts, emotions, and actions. So all three bodies are thrown into motion. Subconscious elements act as some viruses do. They hide in many forms to avoid identification. So we must remember that the suggestions other people plant within us are not even as dangerous as the suggestion that we plant within ourselves. It does mean, how can I say this? The more sensitive you are. Now, sensitivity can be looked at in two ways. Sensitivity, if you are depressed, you're going to be easily impressed. If you are depressed, you're going to be easily impressed by post-hypnotic conditions. If you are unconscious, with a little u, unconscious, you will be easily impressed by post-hypnotic suggestions. But if you are just living a normal life, you are your greatest enemy. Can I say that and get away with it? I'll put it that way, we are our greatest enemy with the suggestions that we plant within ourselves. But this is how I find it. You know, if I'm listening to somebody who's talking over and over and over and over again about their health, and then I go home and I think about what they said, and then I begin to try to identify the causes. And then if I'm not careful, if I'm tired while I'm thinking this way, some of that conversation leaks into my subconscious mind. The teachings say disidentify, right? Detach. So if you are in a very impressive state of mind, if you're depressed, if you're tired, if you are overworked, if you are stressed, don't default into thinking about other people's problems. Think about beauty. Think about success. Think about joy. Especially be grateful for your health, for your life situation, for being on this path. Be grateful. If you were able to observe yourself during an occasion of anger or jealousy and see the recordings that are taped, even greed, and you see that these recordings are taped in your physical, emotional, mental dimensions, you would be horrified. The teaching says we think we are harmless human beings, but once you see those recordings, you'll see that this is just not true yet. It is important to understand that the main target of all our subconscious suggestions is us, is ourselves. Of course, in various situations, we harm others under re-stimulation. But in most of the cases, we harm ourselves in various ways. The subconscious elements are clever enough to manifest in our life in such a way that they escape the direction, the detection. They escape the detection of our conscious mind. In most cases, our conscious mind or the conscious person does not see the causes and the processes, but sees the effects and then wonders, how can such things happen to me? The subconscious mind is composed of what? You've got to really pay attention, so be focused, okay? The subconscious mind is composed of unrelated circuits or disks. Unrelated circuits or disks. But the strange thing is that once they are re-stimulated, once these circuits or disks are re-stimulated or stimulated, they unite as one unbearable noise, so to say. Think of maybe yourself would fall in this category, or others you've heard say, I can't meditate because when I sit down, I'm bombarded by what they call the chitta, C-H-I-T-T-A. All the noise of the mind, the monkeys of the mind. I know sometimes when you come here on Sunday mornings, and it's like during the week we have run like that chipmunk on the exercise wheel. We're busy, 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 busy. You come on Sunday mornings and it's still and it's quiet and there's no longer a lot of noise going on, and what happened? You fall asleep. Peace has descended for a little while. Now, it is possible that in different years or weeks we are re-stimulated to different circuits, but it doesn't make any difference. That this circuit becomes active, that circuit becomes stimulated or re-stimulated. It doesn't make any difference, because once you awaken, all the circuits begin to act out. And the post-hypnotic suggestions guide our life. I remember one person, I tried my best to try to break through that recording, and I'm yelling at that person and they're yelling back and they want to run out of the office. It didn't work. Not then, but later it did. It took a year for them to stop being mad at me. But that's how difficult it is to break a digital video recording, because it goes on and on and on and on. One incarnation to another, to another, to another, all because of that post-hypnotic suggestion that goes in the subconscious mind, and life after life after life, it's re-stimulated, re-stimulated, re-stimulated. And if you have a teacher that recognizes what's happening and can try to break through and turn off that trigger, then you have a vacuum. What are you going to do? Well, you fill it with anger for a while. Unless you're really in strong contact with your solar angel or your unfolding human soul, your conscience, and your conscience begins to talk to you and say, well, maybe I am a little responsible here. Maybe I could stop doing this or that makes my subconscious mind so active. Let's say that in your recordings, oh man, I'm so out of time. I really apologize for this. But the nice thing is I'm going to be talking about this next week. Okay, so let me see how I can wrap this up here. Let me finish with this idea. Let's say that in your recordings you have your father. In your video digital recordings, okay, you have your father, your mother, your sister, your lawyer, your neighbor, your jewels, your bank books, your house, and so forth. If one of these inputs is re-stimulated, then all of these circuits will be re-stimulated. And through the entire and though the entire recording is not going to be played back simultaneously, it supports the position that begins to manifest. This is so deep. I hope you either buy the CD or go on to WMEA World on YouTube and listen to this several times. It will change your life. It will change your consciousness. It is that important. Okay, so I'm going to stop here, and we'll pick up where I left off, okay, next Sunday.